Hey everybody, it's Eric with District 82 Pinball. We had an awesome weekend of pinball. The Pinball Super Series was here this weekend. We did 6 tournaments over 4 days, over 100 players. Just a ton of pinball was played the entire weekend. And when you do that, games break, okay? And we have tournament directors. A big shout out to Colin McAlpine, Tom Graff, and Matt McCarty, who were also co-tournament directors with me, who had to make those calls on some games that were broken while players were playing them. And I know a lot of people want to know, hey, like what actually happened to the game and whatnot. So I'm just going to go down the rows because I got a giant clipboard of everything that was broken that I didn't fix yet. And just decisions that were made and games that were broken, what I think it is to fix, because it's going to take me a while to fix all these games, but I just wanted to do this now so you can see the kind of things that we have to, decisions we got to make on the fly and fixing them after the fact. So let me flip the camera around and start on the first one here. All right. So the very first one, this actually happened to me. When I was playing Jackpot. Now in Jackpot, when you start the game, you got your skill shot. Here, let me just activate it so people can see what I'm talking about here. Actually, I'm not going to. So you try to short plunge this, right? You can either go for the skill shot and get your skill shot points. It drops into the pops and it kicks it out kind of wildly into the play field. And you're trying to, typically hit this one to lower the visor right away. Well, when you're short plunging it, my ball got caught right there on the gate, okay? So I'm a tournament director, so I can't make the call for myself. So I was actually playing with Colin McAlpine in this match, and I called him over and said, hey, my ball's stuck. Do I get it on my right flipper? Because it's on the right side of the play field. And he said, no, because you haven't actually got it into the playfield yet. So the call was put the ball back into the shooter lane, and then I had to replunge. So had it, been in the playfield, got stuck over there, then yeah, put it on the right flipper. But since I actually hadn't gotten in the playfield yet, I had to reshoot it. Okay. Oh, and also, why do you short plunge it? So it like rolls back onto here, and then you can catch it on one of your flippers without activating a switch, because if you miss, it'll just go in the trough and you get it back again. Okay, let's move on down the rows. No issues here that I'm aware of or remember. This was a giant issue. This was at the end of one of the tournaments on Target Alpha. I believe I have 2 issues on Target Alpha, and this one actually happened to me as well. So I had to call someone over. So we were playing this, I believe we were on ball 3, and on ball 3, I was player 4. I drained my ball, and apparently I must have had about 27,000 points, and they think I had 4 drop targets down. So in this game, when you do the ball count at the end for your bonus, each drop target is worth 1,000 points. So each of them drop targets is worth 1,000 points. And it clicks it over super fast, okay? So it would go, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. And the people I was playing with, Jason and Greg, like immediately saw that my score went 27, 28, 29, 40, 41. So somehow the thousands and the 10,000s must have got caught against each other and flipped at the same time. Called Colin over. I didn't see it as the player. I thought I did better than that, but the ruling was, subtract 10,000 points from my score and carry on. And then Colin watched the match the entire way to the end. Well, then at the very end of the match, we had another issue. So I was playing it. I had knocked down 7 drop targets, and then as soon as the ball drained, instead of actually giving me any bonus at all, it clicked over to player 1 and continued the match, even though it was ball 5 end of game. It did not end, and it also did not give me my ball bonus. Now in this particular game, on your last ball, on your 5th ball on Target Alpha, you get a double bonus. So you get 2,000 per drop target that's down. Colin was actually watching it as a tournament director, counted that I had 7 drop targets down. So that's 14,000 in bonus points. And so then he added the 14,000 bonus points to my score because the game didn't give it to me and it was the end of the game. That ended up, and then minus the 10,000 ended up putting me just ahead of the other player for a final. And then I took the game out for the rest of the night. And I believe I have a score reel issue that I got to look at, and then a player select or end of ball bonus unit issue. I'll fix that, later this week when I take a look at it. That was a horrible call to have to make, as a TD, but he was standing here and watched the whole thing. So it all got done and it got fixed. Went horrible. I mean, it was a difficult call. Okay. Here we go. Ramp diverter. This happened during practice. The diverter is not opening anymore on Funhouse. So I took it out. Most likely it's either the wire fell off or it's jammed would be my guess. And I just have to lift the playfield up and take a look at it. One of the players told me what it was. A big help for me as both the owner of these games and the tech and everything else is when you have players who are here and they know the rules of the game and they know what's supposed to happen. And if it doesn't happen, they actually tell me, hey, this is not working right. Take a look at it. And I really, really appreciate that. So I can actually get these things fixed. Okay, all these things worked. Okay, Circus Voltaire. During one of the warm-ups, the Juggler Lock 2 switch wasn't working, so the ball would go into, there's 1 and there's 2. The ball would go in there, and it would not register. So then it would do the ball search and kick it out. So that was a switch issue. I just made a slight adjustment on the switch, and it was good to go the rest of the weekend. Right on the first day during warm-ups, a player came up and said, hey, we don't have any of the controlled lamps working on Frontier here, okay? So what it ended up being was basically a cold solder joint on the power supply board. I'm not sure what it is on Frontier at the moment. I believe it's over here. And just had to put a dab of solder on there, and then it was good to go for the rest of the weekend. And we were able to fix it right before the start of the first tournament. Big shout out to Patrick Vandenegg for helping me out at the very start of this, being my tech for the first warm-up session, which I knew a whole bunch of games would go down on. Okay, so these all worked. I don't remember making any calls on these games. Mousing around, attack. Other than, stuck balls are no big deal. Seem to work. Indiana Jones seems to have some kind of a ball trough tracking issue. I mean, there's a ton of optics in this game. We're just going to have to look at the ball trough. What it would do is it would sometimes it either put 2 balls in the trough or it just launched a ball when it shouldn't have. And a flaky opto is not uncommon on Indiana Jones. And it did affect one player's game, I believe, and the decision was made to, I don't remember what the decision was, but we took the game out for the rest of the tournament, but it made it like almost to the end of everything. Okay, let's see what we got here. Star Wars. Star Wars actually worked good for most of the weekend, and then towards the end, there's 2 little forks. Oh, probably should have turned this one on. Right underneath the Death Star there, you see those 2 holes? There's some forks that come up to capture the ball. And over time, when the ball, the ball is hit in this horseshoe right here, boom, super hard, and it spins around under this ramp and whacks those forks, and they tend to get bent forward, okay? And then over time, they don't work right, and they're also put in there with screws, that they're held in. So things get loose. Sometimes you just got to tighten the screws. Sometimes you got to bend the bracket of the whole fork mech just a touch to make sure the alignment is right so that they go up and down perfectly straight. If they're not perfectly straight, they get hung up on the wood. You can see there's not a lot of tolerance from the oval, from the the ovalness of the wood, or the diameter of the hole in the playfield versus the diameter of the fork. So it has to be pretty darn near perfect for it to work properly. Okay, Trident. Well, Trident worked for a couple of days. First thing is the kicker was actually stuck forward a little bit, and eventually it would work its way back, and then it'd activate and it would be kind of hanging up forward, and then as you play it kind of falls back. Now it's a kicker, it's not a super critical thing, but at the end of the day I opened the playfield up and took a look at it, and the coil stop was actually cracked in half. So the coil was kind of falling out of the mech and causing that to get jammed up. So I, at the end of the second day or whatever, I went home and I got some parts, and one of them was a coil stop for that. Came back in the morning, put a new coil stop in, that thing was ready to go. Then, during that day, it did a couple of random resets when people were playing it during warm-ups. I just took it out for the rest of the day. I don't want to reset during a game, because that's you got to start over on a different game then. Okay, Monster Bash. During practice, someone said that the right ramp wasn't scoring all the time. So I ran over real quick and took a look at it, and it turned out, if you see this right ramp switch right here, there's supposed to be 2 screws in it. There's one screw right there, and the other screw is gone, okay? And the switch was kind of floppy. So someone, and then all of a sudden I found out about it right when a match was called on it. I ran over here, looked at it, saw that it was a little bit loose. I don't know where the second screw is. It's somewhere in the bottom of the playfield. I just tightened up that one screw and made sure it worked. And it's worked ever since. It'll probably work fine with that one screw in it. But I'm just going to get a new screw, stick it in there, and then I think should be good to go. All right. Right spinner was not working very good on Tales from the Crypt. Actually, it wasn't working at all. It's actually a very important switch on this game, because after you collect the creature feature, the only way to relight the creature feature is to hit the lit spinner, whichever side it's on. I lifted it up. It was actually just a little bent. The switch was a little bit off, and I just adjusted it with my finger with a tiny little bend, and then it was back good to go again. No big deal. Okay. F14 Tomcat. It was in the entire time. It made it all the way to the end, and I never had to pull a ball or nothing. But the plunger is just kind of sticky. I mean, it's almost like someone dropped some Coke on it or something, and it just got, nasty. So I'm gonna take it apart. Take out. They make a sleeve for the plunger mech in here, a plastic sleeve. I'm gonna take it out, alcohol, the plunger rod, and everything. Put a new sleeve in it, and try it again. If it still feels sticky, then most likely the plunger rod is bent, and I'll have to replace the plunger rod, because I can never rebend a plunger rod straight. Okay, stars. Man, this was like the catastrophe. It just started resetting from day one, and I don't know what it is. The resets on these early Sterns, man, it never was in a match. So I'm just gonna have to open it up, look at the power supply, look at everything. I typically rebuild everything before I bring it in here, but I could have missed something, so I'll just take a look at that when that happens. Okay, so here's one where knowing the rules is actually important, and I didn't know the rules that well on this game. So the person told me that on here it says Stern Jurassic, relight the light kickback switch. Above pops doesn't work. So I came over here and went into tech issues, and sure enough it said switch 35, which is the pops enter switch wasn't working, which is this switch right here. And when you actually activate it with your finger, it sometimes is working and sometimes not working. So that's just going to be an adjustment, and it's activating like as soon as I touch it. So it's like a hair trigger. The problem is if it's a hair trigger, sometimes when it unactivates, it actually doesn't deactivate and it just stays stuck on. If it stays stuck on, then the game just doesn't count it until it deactivates again. So that'll be, lift it up, just bend it just a touch, and she'll be good to go. All right. Oh, what else is broken here? Twilight Zone, I was told it had ball count or ball tracking issues in the trough. So I'll just take a look at that and probably feed it with a bunch of balls, bang on the play field a few times, see if any switches get activated or whatnot, and just run a whole bunch of balls through it and see if I can recreate the issue. So I don't know what the issue is on Twilight Zone, but since someone told me that was happening during a practice game, I didn't want to risk that happening during a match, so I just turned it off. We got over 100 pins here. We can lose a couple. Getaway. Okay, this happened during a match. A player locked like their second ball, but there was already a ball in the lock mechanism. Okay, so in this game, to lock the ball, you shoot the orbit, and it comes around the back, and it comes up here and locks in this lock mechanism where these little switches are in here. Now, if you can see this, that metal post right there that's sticking up, it's right at the edge of my fingertip, that actually is where the balls stop, okay? And then they back up from here. Now, when you got a multiplayer game, and one person locked a ball, another person locked a ball, another person locked a ball. Well, now they're all up in this mechanism, and that diverter or release mech has to activate. And so it activates and it goes down and it comes up based on like timing to allow one ball to come back into the play field and feed the right flipper so the player can continue on. So when this player locked their second ball, there were now 3 balls up in this mechanism. It had to release one. What it ended up doing is it released all 3. The player let 2 of them go and trapped up one of them, and then called me over to explain the issue. And that was actually, and so what I said was play on, because that's actually what they should have done. They should have allowed the 2 balls to go and this play the 1 ball that was theirs. And then once they lock that 3rd ball, I believe the game will compensate and then just start multi-ball from the trough and kick them in to play. Okay. Doctor Who. Man, this game started multi-ball for somebody when they were not in multi-ball. So there is something going on with those 5 things right there are optic switches. This whole mechanism has a lot of optic switches and physical switches and everything else. It worked great for, I think, 1 day, maybe 2 days. And then it started multi-ball, and then it actually did it for somebody else later on in practice. We took it out. Ultimately, I don't think it made a difference in the match of the players that were playing, but I took the game out, and it was not on the rest of the weekend, so now I got to take that thing apart and fix that. Okay, and yes, this is more games that are broken than I've ever had here before. But we also probably played 20,000 games of pinball this weekend, so it is kind of expected. Okay, during a match, Dracula left flipper was not. It was kind of hanging up a little bit, and it wasn't coming back down to flip. And when I took the glass off and actually like physically moved it, it was all this chunky and clunky, and it was terrible. It was just absolutely terrible. So we had already had players 1 complete their ball or their game, player 2 complete their game, and this was on player 3's ball 3. Okay, so player 3 and player 4 had not played yet. One of the other players had a really high score, so they were very concerned that the match continue. Well, I can't allow the match to continue with that terrible flipper. So what we did is I made the players, everyone's write their scores down. Okay, I shut the game off. I lifted the play field up. Well, I knew there was a flipper issue, okay, and I wanted to continue the match because that's the right thing to do if it's fixable. I knew I could fix it. It would just take a little time. So I had everyone write their scores down. I lifted the play field. I rebuilt the left flipper mech, okay, and I don't know, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Once I rebuilt the left flipper mech, I then started a 2-player game. I advanced it to the 3rd ball, because on ball 3 on Dracula, you can get miss multi-ball by just hitting the mystery hole. And that's only proper to let, the players have their shot at it. And I did that by just picking the ball up, hitting the sling switch and dropping it in the hole. So they only had very minimal points. So the points that they got from that was nothing. So they each got 1 ball to complete their game. They added it to the original score, and then that completed the match. Okay, and then probably 2 hours after that, Dracula did a hard reset during someone in practice. So I just said, shut it off. I don't want to have any more issues with Dracula. Okay. Speaking of flippers, this one had a flipper go out too. And I actually had to rebuild the left flipper on Meteor. That happened in between days, the end of day 2 to the start of day 3, and then this one was back up. Did not have to make any calls during a match on it, thankfully. Okay, these were all working. Champion Pub. Champion Pub didn't have anything bad happen, but so this boxer guy right here. You got the speed bag, right? I got some terrible glare here, sorry. So this speed bag, you bash the speed bag a bunch of times, to qualify your fighter, and then you shoot one of the locks to start your fighter, right? And then he turns around, and then you got to keep bashing the fighter, and he's punching you and stuff. Well, the player, remember it was Ben Granger, was having like an awesome game, over 100 million points, and then he had just beaten a fighter, and he was turning back around to go back to the speed bag, and then his arm got stuck on the ramp. And so they called me over, and what I did is I did what you're not supposed to do, which is just physically turned him back. And then that fixed that, and the game continued, and it didn't happen again. And then I know another time later on, a player was in multi-ball. They had 4 balls on the playfield, okay, and the fighter was turned facing him. He had 4 balls. I got called over. He had 2 balls trapped on the right flipper, 1 ball trapped on the left flipper, and another ball trapped in the fighter's arm. So the ball would not come out of the fighter's arm, and he'd trapped up. And that's actually the right thing to do, because essentially you got a trapped ball during multi-ball. You cannot continue playing until that stuck ball is freed. So he called me over. I took the glass off. I pulled the ball off the fighter's arm, and I stuck it on the left flipper because it was on the left side of the playfield. The match continued, and there was no other issues. Okay, what else we got? Spider-Man. Spider-Man had an issue. This happened during practice, so it didn't affect anybody's matches. But there's a gate right here that allows the orbit to go through, and also a gate over there that are controlled gates. So when you hit the orbits, they're either down or they're up, depending on if they want it to go into the in lanes and pops, or if it needs to be an orbit shot. Wyatt actually, so it wasn't working at all. So I turned it off and took a quick look at it in between matches, and it turned out there was a connector. There's literally, I went through, checked the fuses, they're all good. You think it's a fuse at first and whatnot. There's actually a connector that's the power feed for just those 2 coils. That's right at the crook of the bottom of the playfield, and it was actually disconnected. So I know that I was working on this game, earlier in the day with the playfield up on something, and I must have knocked that connector off. So I reconnected that connector, and everything's good again. Okay, and then pop a card. It works every time with no issues. That's why it's a Wisconsin favorite, especially Dave's. Okay, and then we got BMX. BMX, right in lane, out lane diverter. Oh boy. This was on a match that happened with me where on this game, okay, there's 2 buttons on either side of the cabinet. Okay, one's for the flipper, and then one is for this little diverter gate right here to go in and out, okay? And then what that does is it, when your ball comes in here, it can either go to the out or you can continue the match. okay? So when I was playing it, you can see that when you activate this thing, those 2 star lights are gonna go out, watch. So it closes and then they go out. And then it opens and it closes and then they go out. Well, during the match, I definitely hit the button and the gate did not close, okay? I'm 100% certain of that. And I know it happened to one other player during the match as well. We called over the tournament director, Colin McAlpine, and he's like, look, it's a minor malfunction unless it's consistently happening. It never happened again, as far as I know, during the rest of the tournament. It didn't happen again during our match. Didn't happen again during the rest of the tournament. It was ruled a minor malfunction, which means you just carry on, and too bad, essentially, about it. So we just continued the match and carried on. Okay, what else I got here? Nope. All good, all good, all good. Okay, this one, you got to realize we got some top ranked players. They like to slap the cabinets a lot. This flipper button was actually pushed into the cabinet. Okay, so when I took it off and took the glass off, the screw was actually popped out. So I had to loosen everything up, realign it, push it back out, and I actually put in like a bigger diameter screw into the hole and fixed it, and there's no more issues. That was fixed. Carry on. Did not happen during a match, so that wasn't an issue. Viking. There was a tilting issue, and we fixed it. I know a diode was bent over. This happened during warm-ups, so I was able to fix that right away, and there were no issues. Okay, Flintstones was out for kind of like half the tournament, and what it is there's a diverter in the back, and it's really hard to see. It's very similar to that Star Wars one, where you got a hole in the playfield and the diverter comes up and hits the ball, okay? But on Flintstones, to start multi-ball, you basically got to hit this lane right here, or, this lane right here, and it whips around underneath this mechanism here, where a metal post comes up out of the playfield and ricochets the ball into a scoop, okay? And then that scoop kicks it up into this, circular mech here, starting multi-ball. Well, the diverter would come up and it would knock the ball back instead of diverting it into this mechanism. It would divert it back the lane and come out, and it was like 90%. So I was like, well, we can't have that. Take it out. I was able to adjust it, rebend it, just by bending the mechanism a little bit. And then it was diverting it probably like 80% of the time to the proper place. And for now, that was good enough. I mean, if it doesn't hit it in there sometimes, that's just the nature of pinball. But, not going in there 9 out of 10 times is not acceptable. But if it is going to the proper place, most of the time, that was good. I'm going to fix it so it goes in proper 100% of the time. But that was okay. All right, Harlem, these ones are okay. There's something goofy on this game. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's in the rules or whatnot. But the game likes to give you, random ball saves. And I turned the ball save, which is also known as the freeze time in Austin Powers, I turned it off in the settings. And then it still happened. And so I don't know if there's something goofy in the code or if I have a ball trough issue, but I just took it out for the rest of the tournament because it just doesn't seem right. It seems like there's some kind of a mechanical malfunction with the game, and I have to look at it. I mean, unless it is the code where it just still gives you a random ball save sometimes, that it just doesn't seem right. Okay. This is one where it's just kind of a bizarre thing. It was in the tournament the whole day. There's no issues or nothing. But on this game, the plumb bob, it just likes to swing forever. So what I did, and I know someone's going to be happy, you know, I went ahead and stuck an earplug, one of these things in here. So if you make a move on the game, it's still going to tilt, but it settles a lot faster. Instead of, they called me over after everybody tilted, and the thing, and they explained the whole thing to me, and it was probably like 4 or 5 minutes, and I opened the coin door, and the thing was actually still swinging. So that's a really long time for that thing to still be swinging. So I just stuck an earplug in it for future, and it'll settle a lot faster. Okay, no issues on these games. Oh yeah, this one had an issue. The left ramp is where you lock balls, and it wasn't locking the balls. And they called me over, and they're like, "Hey, it's not locking the balls." And immediately, I could see, you can see that red light right there. That's the optic sensor for the switch. That was not on. So I'm like, okay, well the opto's out. Just turned it off, and it was out for for a few hours until I had a chance to come look at it. What it ended up being is, if you can see that little green circuit board right there, my finger is, one of the wires was actually busted off of the circuit board right there. So I turned the game off, lifted the playfield, soldered it back on, and turned the game back on. Switch works again. Put it back in the tournament. Good to go. It did not happen during a match, so I didn't have to make a call on it. Nothing critical here. This one, RoboWar, the right flipper. The right flipper just died. It got stuck up, and it is sticking up electronically, not physically. So there is some kind of a power issue going on here, and I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. So I got to really dive into that. I'm not super familiar with the circuit boards and the inner workings of Gottlieb System 80 that much, so I got to address it. Total Nuclear Annihilation worked great pretty much all weekend. And then during a practice game, someone was saying that the R switch stopped working. Took the glass off, hit the R switch a bunch of times to confirm it. Yeah, it's not working. It was towards the end of Sunday, so I just took it out, and we didn't have to play with it again. Most likely the wire fell off, that switch. I'll just have to solder it back on, and that'll fix it. During practice, the very first day, I was told that the toilet targets weren't working. So those 3 switches right there, the one's got the wreath, the toilet paper, and the balloons. Those are the 3 targets that you have to shoot to begin multi-ball. They're very, very important targets in South Park, okay? And the toilet paper one and the balloon one are not working consistently at all. They're just super flaky and terrible. So I just took it out of the tournaments. Those are kind of specialty switches, so you really got to order the proper switch. You just can't fake those ones and put in something different on the fly. So I just got to order those ones from Marco's, and I'll get some new switches, and the game will be back up and running. Okay, on this one, Matahari, the kick out was kicking the ball literally straight down the middle, like every time. So it didn't. When all the I mean, during a match, it's like, hey, you know, right before it kicks it out, you can give it a little shake, you can do something to try to fix it. But after everything was all said and done, you can see that little that metal dongle in there now is all the way pushed over to the right-hand edge. What I did is I just took the glass off, not during a match or anything, activated it, caught it when it came out, and just bent it over that way a little bit, and then made sure it still has freedom of movement. And now whenever it kicks it out, it just kicks it out, and it basically hits halfway to the top of the flipper here. So it's a safer feed out from there now. You really shouldn't be penalized, but everybody's playing the same game, and it was very consistent on the kick out for every single player. So it's fixed now. All right, this happens on this game on Kiss. We're talking about Bally Kiss here now. When you hit the center, when the yellow light is on, it says right there, it says opens gate when lit, okay? Well, it's always lit if you hit the center. Or I think it is, or if it's every other hit or something. That opens up this outlane save gate, okay? And sometimes when you hit the switch, if the ball's kind of bouncing around, it'll like close on the switch and the ball gets stuck on the switch and it's stuck there. So then they call me over and I just pick the ball up and stick it on the flipper for the player, and that fixes that issue. Okay, this happened right at the beginning, I believe, of a match. There was two issues. Number one, when they were picking their house and they're hitting the flippers, you could hear a 10-point target activating. Okay, and it ended up being on the upper playfield. One of the switches was a little tight, so I adjusted that switch, and that fixed that issue. But a separate game, a more serious issue was they were hitting the flippers and the bottom right flipper wouldn't work. Okay, so I opened the coin door, and it was actually player one. So I opened the coin door, looked inside, and I could see that the wire had fallen off the flipper coil. Since they had just got this match drawn, no one's actually played yet, I just went ahead and grabbed them a new game. And then when I had a break, I went ahead and just resoldered that wire back on and put it back in the tournament. Okay, we got a couple more. Yes, all this happened in one weekend, and we're still working on it. Stingray, yeah, I had to free a couple of stuck balls on these switches. There's not a lot of playfield pitch on Stingray, and if you hit a soft one up in here, I've tried to adjust these as best I can, but sometimes the ball just gets hung up on the edge of one of these orange targets, and I just got to take it out and stick it on the flipper for the player. Okay. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Turn the light off in here. Roller Coaster Tycoon. This ramp switch right here that doesn't have a metal guide on it anymore stopped working. And when I was trying to fix it, I broke it off. So it was out for the rest of the tournament. I just got to replace that switch. Silver Ball Mania. This happened to me during play when I was playing against some players. The most important shot on this game is this horseshoe, okay? It's the only shot, basically, on this game until you get the spinners lit. And what happens is you go through the horseshoe, right, and it lights your multipliers and spots you a letter. Okay, so that's why you constantly are going for that shot. Well, I hit two shots in a row, or one shot, went through, didn't count anything on the horseshoe. I shot another shot through, did not count anything on the horseshoe. That was two in a row. So then I called over the tournament director, and I was like, look, I shot that twice. It didn't count either time. And he said, okay, well, I'll watch it. That's a minor malfunction, which it is. And if it consistently happens for the rest, or, more often, then we'll pull it out. Well, it never happened again for the rest of the match, and other people were hitting the target constantly. So how these two targets work, they're essentially, as far as the game's concerned, they're the same switch. They're on the same switch number and everything. Well, if one of them is stuck on, the game on these early Bally's and Sterns, a lot of time when a switch is stuck on, or sometimes I should say, it constantly is scoring, right? And then I got a stuck switch, and you got to figure out which one it is. But on this one, it does not constantly score. It just doesn't do anything. So it says stuck on, and if you hit something through here and the switch is stuck on, nothing happens. Okay, it doesn't. You'd think that it's open and you're flying over the switches, but it may not be that. It might be the switch is stuck on. So after the match, I went ahead and lifted the playfield up, took a look at it, and sure enough, this switch was just very tight. And so this is a CPR playfield. Okay, on these new CPR playfields, they have clear coat that they clear them with, and those star inserts, you kind of have to sand them out so you can have that white star roll over, move up and down nice and freely. And there might have been, and of course I did sand them out, but I might have missed something at some point, and that star must have been just down just a touch, and the switch was just a hair tight, and it would not activate the horseshoe. So I just loosened up the switch, so instead of having to hit it, you know, this much to activate. Now you got to hit it like that much to activate it. And that fixed it, and I never heard about it again for the rest of the tournaments. And then I think we got one left. Yeah, the shadow. So this is shadow. When you play shadow, you got this diverter and this diverter to actually change ramps, so you can actually, you know, have your ball go one way or the other, right? Well, this one's not working. Oh, it's working now. Okay, so it was not working during, oh, now it stopped working.
You are boring me.
So I'm now that I saw that it worked and now it doesn't work, my guess is I have some kind of an alignment issue with the whole mech, because that's a really bizarre mech. There's a coil on both sides, and then it fires one side or fires the other side. So my guess is there's probably some screws that are loose and it's causing it to bind. So I'll lift up the playfield and take a look at that. So that's it. Those are the only things that are broken. So if you're thinking about putting a tournament on, don't worry about it. Things happen. You know, you'll get them fixed. You'll have to make decisions, but that's just the nature of pinball. It's a mechanical game, an electronic game. Things aren't going to work right all the time, but players understand that, and you move on. But if you want to come play a tournament at District 82, you will have a good time. I'll make a fair ruling if something breaks and we got to play a new game or fix it and play on. But it was a lot of fun this weekend. Everyone that came, thank you. Everyone that helped, a huge thank you for doing that. And I will see you guys next time, and play more pinball.